just want the games to begin.
Yeah, and I think the audiences as well.
Well, games are about to begin here. Thanks to our analysts for being here on the desk with us as we bring in our casters. As we're about to start this with Arjun and Nihal. If you're watching from home here, who do you think is going to win? Who do you have? Who is your favorite? You can place your favorites in the chat here. Now, we bring on our casters to call all of the action. Grandmaster Amon Hamilton and Grandmaster Eric Hansen. Let's go, boys.
Excited, James. We're into another match here, and this one is going to be very exciting. Eric, we have a matchup between Arjun Erigaisi and Nihal Sarin.
All Indian matchup. We know there's going to be a lot of eyeballs here.
Yeah, the players definitely know each other very well. The games are just underway here. This is Nihal Sarin from Seoul Esports, Arjun Erigaisi, Gen G.
And we know Arjun, he's broken into the world's elite, part of this Indian generation. Nihal has a lot of supporters. He's a very strong grandmaster himself, around 2,700, but hasn't quite played in as many top events, fields such as this.
Yep, it's absolutely right. But these are the type of players, Eric, you give them that chance, they will make the most of it. And we already see some very, very quick play because, this might even be a game that they've played before.
It looks familiar, but part of the reason it looks familiar is Levon Aronian won from this opening against Andrei Esipenko in a remarkable game. I highly recommend it for those that didn't watch it live.
That's right.
White goes for the attack in this position.
Yeah, and we see that immediately with the move knight d5 into the center. And we saw this exact structure. And one of the moves that we highlighted, which was a key for Levon Aronian when he played with white, was the move d5 at some point. Now, with the rook on e8 for Nihal and the queen on e2 for Arjun, he's controlling that idea early. And, so far with the move f4 as well, Eric, I'm liking what I'm seeing from Arjun. Nothing too concerning just yet, but this is an aggressive game, and both of these players are very aggressive, and we might get a wild tactical game.
I think so. Even though they're countrymen, this is the group stage and only 2 advance. There's only going to be 1 winner of this match. Nihal, Fianchettoing, placing more pieces around the king side. The way Arjun is playing, f4, knight b5, feels like he's got quite a few ideas in the structure ready. Because this is even a bit different. Sometimes you tuck your bishop into b1, maybe you rook lift. Here, he's kind of saying, how are you going to remove that knight on e5? If you ever take it, I'm going to be thrilled to open up the f-file, build my center. If you don't do it, and we see bishop f8 is not an easy move to play because you just placed your bishop on g7.
Yep.
Sometimes in chess, moving backwards is still the best decision. It's just hard to play psychologically.
Yeah, these players are at the top level of chess, so they can admit, okay, the best move is just to move back, but as humans we don't like that. Look at this though, a6, kicking the knight out. Now he can finally get that bishop to the g7 square, which is ultimately where he wants it. I'm seeing every single white pawn make its way to the 4th rank, Eric. It's making me wonder, is he going to continue? Like, how crazy is Arjun willing to get with this position? Because you play a move like knight into e4, all those trades that can happen in the center will benefit Nihal. He'd love to trade pieces, even trade queens. White's pawns will actually be targets in an endgame or if a lot of pieces exchange off the board, whereas Arjun could do something insane like g4 and f5, and it just depends what game he wants to play.
Yeah, for game 1, that would definitely be very exciting for us. I think white is going to wait a few moves before maybe thinking about those options. I'm thinking about king h1, but I'm not actually sure. Sometimes you play king h1, it's prophylactic. Not sure with the bishop on b7 that's the right decision. a5 is interesting. You're sacrificing a pawn. It's not the biggest pawn to sacrifice. If black takes, those are doubled a pawns. In an endgame, those could be valuable. The way Arjun is playing, he doesn't plan on this heading to some sort of endgame. He's going for a middle game attack.
That's
and
right.
A benefit of sacrificing this pawn, once you remove that b pawn, your c and d pawn, they have more potential to push forward, grab some more space as white.
I wouldn't be surprised to see b takes a5, c5, and this looks like the natural reaction. That's exactly what's happened. Of course, you have this idea in the future of playing c6, but you know what? I don't think this is something he's calculated that you know, oh, I'll be winning on this next move. I think this is a long-term idea, Eric. There's doubled pawns on the A file. They can be taken at some point. Even though white is down a pawn here, he's happy to remain that way for a number of moves. And structurally, he's just created for himself a protected pass pawn on c5. Yes, I was more expecting the move d5 to open up the bishop on b2, but the structure has changed. And what I'm seeing here is that Arjun Erigaisi is playing with a clear plan. And that means a lot in a match where, you know, time is ticking. It's helpful to just know what to do.
It definitely helps to know what to do, but one thing we know from covering many of Nihal's games is it's not easy to phase him. It could look like a massive attack. It could be a winning position. He still plays quickly. He's still looking for resources. He doesn't get psychologically beaten. He doesn't have like a defeatist attitude. And so you will see Queen C7 played. White has a nice setup. The question is, how do you proceed now, though? How do you see that pawn on C5? I would love as white to get one of my knights, especially the knight on C3, to D6. I'm just not sure how to accomplish that. And right now, I think the ball is back in Arjun's court. How do you make progress?
Yeah, exactly right. And, you know, all these pawn moves on the king side, G4, H4, yes, they help the attack, but it's at the expense of your own king, right? The white king would be completely wide open there. Instead, we're likely going to see a lot of piece play. So bishop C4, improving the bishop a little bit.
Knight B8 is a move I'm looking at, by the way, for black. The knight on D7, if you're not going to take on E5 ever, then you're kind of like even blocking your own D file. When you go rook D8, you're not even hitting D4. I'm looking at a move knight B8, knight C6 to try to alleviate pressure or maybe improve that knight from C6 to B4. Just do something there because I really don't see a situation where black decides to take on E5.
Yeah, it's just far too scary. White takes with the F pawn, opens up the F file, and chess is always a game of squares. So if black plays knight B8, trying to play knight C6, maybe then white finds time to play knight A4 in order to jump into the B6 square. You know, if white goes knight A4, it also gives up the D5 square, Eric. So you have every square under control right now, but the second you come up with an idea for yourself to claim a square, you give up something in return.
You give up something in return, and the way this game is going, Arjun is up on the clock, but he's taking serious risk. This isn't a position where he can be like, okay, you know what, this attack isn't going somewhere. I'm going to liquidate into an equalish endgame. I don't see that being possible. You ever trade your knight on E5? The D4 pawn is weak. You have to watch out for the A pawns as pieces get traded. And as I see, rook D8, I do think this knight B8 move is nearby. There's also knight F8. But Nihal's covering all the key squares right now. I think he's playing it really well. It's up to Arjun to figure out how can I break through because my opponent's not giving me anything.
Yeah, I'm looking at rook D8, and I mean, the first thing is how much do you want to actually capture that pawn on A6? You know, Nihal doesn't want to spend the entire game defending A5, defending A6. They're doubled pawns, they're isolated. But at the same time, if white needs a move here, I struggle to improve the position. The bishop on B2 looks like a piece I might want to improve. Bishop A3, bishop C1, but it's a little unclear to me. Well,
I said that black wasn't giving white anything. He plays rook D8, and you make a good point. What happens if you take on A6? Because I want to take on A6 not because I want a pawn that much. We need a plan, and if I remove the A6 pawn, the B5 square could be useful for that knight on C3 because the knight on C3 is one of the remaining pieces for white to improve the position.
Yep, that's right. Once that knight moves, let's say knight b5 into d6, the bishop on b2 also improves its scope. So this move, rook d8, probably has Arjun Erigaisi thinking, is this a trap? You know, can I actually take that pawn? Because you wouldn't expect your opponent to just hand you over such an obvious move like that.
And you know you're playing against Nihal, who's a very tricky player. So you're really looking at, is there a sacrifice? Is there something loose? I don't see it. Arjun calculates. He doesn't see it. And the game has changed now.
Yep. The complexion of the game has completely changed. And, you know, he's going to be using the d5 square, right? He has to. Now we see the move that you were saying you didn't really expect to ever happen. Well, dropping that A pawn, that's probably a moment where all of a sudden you do think like this. The bishop on B2, Eric, is not a great piece, but it can always reroute. Bishop C1, bishop to G5. And I look at the move knight D5, we may get a situation where if the light squared bishops exchange, if the knights exchange, the position that we're going to have is one that, you know, the bishop on b2 for white is not great. All those pawns in the middle are on dark squares.
The bishop on b2 is not great, but Black's dark squared bishop might not have the most scope either. I thought Nihal might have traded on c3, getting rid of the knights, because allowing the knight to jump in looks very scary. In a classical game, maybe not as much, you can calculate everything, but in front of you, you're Nihal here. The knight coming to d6 is going to stay there for the rest of the game, and that's a lot to deal with.
Yeah, I think that was a mistake for Nihal not to capture that knight. Imagine this same position, but with the 2 knights in the middle of the board, disappeared. That would be much better for Nihal. Instead, what he's facing is knight d6 at all times. Knight to f6 check he has to deal with, and pawn to h4, h5, even h6 in the future. I mean, there's a lot of threats that you have to deal with. Where's the counterplay? It's that a pawn. That takes a while to get going. Meanwhile, the center is completely defended.
It's completely defended. I like rook b8 because pushing the a pawn, white might even go rook f3 in some positions. Multi-purpose move. You might double, you know, on the f-file to hit f7. You also watch over the a3 square. Rook b8, what Nihal's thinking is he's going for some like overloaded tactics where the queen on e2, in some positions, it's defending the knight on e4, defending on the bishop on b2. That allows for an opportunity. The queen defending both pieces, maybe. Rook takes b2 in the future. Well, actually, just right away. Rook takes b2, knight e3. We're seeing some tactics. Nihal's fast to spot them. But I will say, Arjun's a very sharp player himself. He could play either color here. He thrives in these positions, so I expect him to be up to task.
Yeah, bishop c1 is a great move. It wasn't really doing anything on that diagonal. It's much better on c1. We might see h5 next. Also, the bishop can come to g5, knight into d6 or f6. All the same moves that we talked about now exist again. And this looks like a position where you could pile up on the f-file. You talked about rook f3. That looks like a great move. Rook f3, rook f1, queen f2, knight d6. That's a lot of pressure on the f7 pawn.
It's a lot of pressure, so I think Nihal has to be quick, and he's looking at moves like rook b3. Using the only file that the rooks can move on. That's the b3 square I'm looking at, rook b1. You just always have to watch out that knight d6 is hitting f7 and the rook that you have enough to cover. Right now, black does because there's only 2 attackers. But if Arjun makes a couple more moves, we're looking at serious kingside threats.
Yeah, I think this move is really critical because, as you mentioned, Nihal has to be quick. He plays a move like a4. It's just not quick enough. White has h5, knight d6. The threats for Arjun are much more difficult to deal with. And Eric, as time starts to tick that little bit lower, you know you do not want to be in a position where you are just defending.
a4 played. I know Nihal's calculating. If rook f3, he's definitely going rook b3. That's why Arjun's taking his time. But you see that? Rook h5 was played. Nihal was ready for it. He anticipated it. He plays rook f8. If he spent time there, then that'd be a serious time trouble situation.
Yep, he's still within that 1 minute margin. And, you know, we've talked a little bit about time pressure for each player. As Arjun Erigaisi is thinking here, let's remember, Nihal Sarin, probably one of the best players, perhaps in this entire event, low on time. We've seen him work some absolute magic, you know, in the last chance qualifier, making it through here with 20 seconds. When you think he's down and out, he's absolutely not.
Queen g4, I like the move because rook f3 allows rook b3. Queen g4, you need to keep the options open. One of the ideas, you're eventually going to take on g6, place a knight on g5, and maybe you start attacking the h7, f7 squares. And look at this move, a3, asking a question. Are you going to continue attacking, or are you going to go?
He takes it immediately. What confidence, because look at this. The knight can move to e3, Eric. It hits the queen and both rooks for white. But he took that like just cold-blooded. Bishop takes a3.
He calculated if knight e3, there's queen f3, and there's the discover check on f6 attacking the queen on c6. So he has time. There's no time for knight e3. Queen f3 and knight f6 is lethal. And I wonder if Nihal missed that based on the speed. Nihal usually plays quickly. He's just missed something here.
Yeah, knight e3, if it can't be played, this is just all the counterplay that we were talking about. Everything that Nihal had in his back pocket is just disappeared. Now the bishop is simply going to go right back to c1. We're going to have the exact same issues for Nihal, except he's missing that a pawn.
He's really missing that a pawn. I'm expecting maybe rook b3 here. I don't see what else. But after bishop c1, this position, Arjun is a really strong attacker, and he's a young, talented player. What I mean is like he can handle Nihal's tactics. Nihal can overwhelm a lot of players. He's very quick, but Arjun is as well.
Yep.
Arjun got to like pretty much 2,800 FIDE by crushing people. Not just winning, not just grinding, by crushing them. That's his style of converting.
And here we go, rook b3, just like you said. Bishop back to c1 and knight e7. You know what? The knight is now looking at the f5 square in order to try to plug the position. You notice how white is targeting all the dark squares in the position. Black, on the other hand, targeting the light squares, d5 and f5.
So to get rid of a knight on f5, you often want to push your g-pawn. I'm not sure this is the position that it's easy to get that. But if you let the knight go to f5, that adds some stability to Nihal. That'll give him time to make some moves and not worry about getting checkmated right away. So this is a critical moment for Erigaisi. How does he deal with knight f5? There's knight d6. You could trade the knights off and still be up a pawn.
Yep.
Everything is good for white, but he needs more than that.
And Eric, there's another idea that we haven't really talked about. It's white pushing that h-pawn all the way up to h6. And this forces the black bishop to take one step back into the corner. And you notice the bishop is 100% trapped there. So there is a way to play where Arjun just says, I'll play h6, trap your bishop, and then maybe just try to trade pieces after that. And, I mean, you're going to be down a bishop later on.
I have an idea here. h6, bishop h8, queen h4. If you go knight f5, I go knight f6 check. You have to take, I take back with the queen, setting up a mating net. And then the next move would be rook takes f5, getting rid of the defender, placing my queen on g7, going for checkmate. I think he's going for that.
Let's see.
Oh.
He's kind of a combination of what we mentioned. Knight d6 that you called earlier stops knight f5 because maybe you just exchange it, but the bishop is trapped on h8. So this is a big advantage for Arjun, but look at the time. It's evening up again, and if this gets into any kind of scramble, Nihal has to be the favorite.
He does have to be the favorite. In a time scramble where your bishop can't move on h8, that's tricky. I mean, we might see that position, but I think Arjun is confident in his own skills, and he's not afraid of that.
And look at what he's doing. Queen e4. He's happy to just make a trade. This is what we talked about with h6, trapping the bishop in the corner. The plan now can just be to trade, Eric, because it's like you're up a piece. The bishop can't move.
Desperate times for Nihal. Here goes f6. He realizes, I can't play an endgame. I can't pre-move if my bishop can't move. f6, trying to chip away at e5, but weakening squares around the king. Now, it's interesting. Does Arjun want to trade queens, or the inclusion of f6 maybe opens up the possibility of keeping the queens on and having additional attacking chances? Maybe the queen goes to h4 now. Maybe queen h4, maybe queen g4. The king is weaker. He takes.
And this move felt necessary, right? If you don't play f6, you're just down a bishop the entire game. f6 played, liberating the bishop on h8. Yes, there's going to be some trades here. Let's also not forget, white is up one full pawn because it was given away by Nihal.
But white's no longer up on time pretty much. Nihal's really done a good job of catching up, and the position was already bad. It's not like it's any worse, so I think Nihal's making great progress here from a defensive perspective.
Completely agree. The d4 pawn can also be a target in the future. The bishop on h8, we talked about it being trapped. Now it's liberated. d4 will be hit. Rook b4, knight c6, or knight to f5. Still in the driver's seat is Erigaisi. Nihal needs to move here. He's under 1 minute.
Nihal needs to move for sure, and I'm almost looking at moves like knight e8 for white at some moment. It's not being played yet. Nihal really needs to move. We've seen him slow down.
Yep.
When he's really low, he pre-moves. But he's gotten himself into time trouble and bailed out.
Yep.
Is this going to be the same situation?
He's not low enough on time yet to really, jump into hyperspeed, but believe me, it's going to happen soon. It's just whether he can hold the position. Bishop g5 right now.
Well,
the e6 pawn would be hanging.
Yeah, there's bishop g5 or knight e8. I like bishop g5 because you want to bring more pieces. There's also knight c3.
Yep.
So can you take on e6? Because knight c3 forks the pieces. Not the biggest move. Rook e6, 2 pawns up for
Watch
Arjun.
out for the d pawn, though. If that pawn falls, Eric, the entire game falls apart.
But how do you defend d4? Are you really going to play rook e4 and move backwards? Then there's knight c3 potentially. If Nihal can free up that bishop, you have counterplay.
He's given up the pawn, but look, everything is kind of crumbling here. He's probably going to exchange, and he's looking at the move c6, but it's not that easy.
Maybe rook g4. Yes, Nihal spots it right away. That bishop is huge.
Very annoying here.
Oh,
Obviously, he does want to take.
Here
Look at
comes
bishop
the
d4.
bishop. Here comes the bishop. Is there rook e7? Do you have time to play rook e7 and come up with some counterplay?
Yeah, there's also rook h4 check, which he's trying to get under control with this move.
Time is even here. The players have to transition to a time scramble, Amon.
Yep.
And Arjun is slowing down. He really needs to improve his tempo.
25 seconds. There's now tricks for
The
black
king's
as
moving
well.
up. The king's going to move up. Yes.
There's rook h5, but that c-pawn is going at some point. You just got to throw caution to the wind and push it. There it is.
Arjun's down 7 seconds, though. The pre-moves have to come quickly.
Yep. Watch out for white's king potentially. Oh, I thought there was a checkmate idea. Not yet.
He's looking to remove that bishop.
Oh, c7 is happening. They're repeating moves here. Surprise! Look
Here
at
comes
the
the
pre-moves.
king, 11 to 18 though. He's got to go for checkmate.
Oh, there's a checkmate idea. Rook f7 is mate.
Rook
He can't
F7.
stop it.
No moves.
Time can tick down, but it won't matter. You can see he is really upset to miss that. But wow, Arjun Erigaisi sets up a checkmate threat. Genji wins game number 1.
We knew Nihal would come back, but Arjun, when he is trying to convert, he's going for mate. He's ready to take those sharp positions, and look at that. There's simply no time, no possibility in that position for Nihal to come up with counterplay.
Completely agree. Wow, I mean, Nihal, we know how, I guess at the end of the game, I think Nihal is the type of player that he can do a lot with a little bit of time. However, Arjun was just focused on the position. He never gave up on the threats, and the way he activated his king and created that mating threat was super impressive.
Absolutely, it's very impressive to see, you know, what you can create when the time in the time pressure. Arjun was able to create some things there. Nihal definitely just, you know, couldn't hold under the pressure. That 10-0 makes it completely different, and with the format, no increment, right? So, with that being said, here, of course, I mean, I do have to bounce back, but how do I do it if I'm Nihal here, Eric?
How do you do it for Nihal? Well, he's got white. You see their styles. They both like to attack.
Aggressive.
Oh, sorry.
Aggressive chess. Absolutely.
Got to make sure everyone at the desk is credentialed, you know?
We got to make sure we are credentialed here. I think I'm good to go. I got to check my pockets, maybe.
Look good.
Make sure I'm good. Okay, we good, Amon. Yeah. At the same time, Eric, what do you think Nihal has to do here?
I think he's going to play the same way.
Okay.
He knows that Arjun's going to give him sharp positions. They both thrive in that. Time trouble, Nihal. It worked for him in the qualifiers. This is a different beast.
Yeah.
He cannot. He didn't have enough time to come back this game.
Yeah.
So he's going to have to up the tempo and try to get the initiative himself, because Arjun is too dangerous, too strong of a player to have that sort of position. I think one thing to notice, Nihal, when he's in the flow and you give him a chance to come back, he goes, he attacks, he attacks. Arjun gave him 1 pawn back when he was up 2 pawns, but then took over. Like, he also understands initiative and counterplay, and they probably know each other very well, coming from the same generation, that he's going to make it very hard for Nihal to get the positions he likes. So I need to see some more speed, more tempo from Nihal. At the end of the day, it's an uphill battle. He is playing someone who on paper probably is a favorite in some aspects, some positions.
Come on, I was 2,800 before here, of course. Arjun, right? Feeling like Arjun, 2,800 piece, right? And as he goes to sit down there, what is? I need to lock in. How do I do it? What's my mindset before I go finish this off, or at least try to, against Nihal, who's looking to strike back with white?
Well, the thing about Arjun is he just showed us a great attacking game. So we've seen that in his repertoire. Now, he might be on the back foot. So we might need to see a different side of Arjun. He has it. Don't think of him as a one-dimensional attacking player, but he might need to showcase that a little bit. If he plays in that all-out style that we know he has, I think what concerns me is that will give a lot of chances to Nihal, and that's not what you want. So he has to find a way to rein it in without, trying to play for a draw too much.
Eric, I'm Nihal's coach here. What are you saying, Eric? Get him. Hey, I got you, bro. It's time to work. What do you think you're going to say if you are a coach of Nihal? You need to bounce back here.
I mean, we look at that game. Nihal went for the counterattack and actually blundered a pawn. Arjun called it right away. I think Nihal just has to play a bit of a cleaner game.
Yeah.
He gave too much there. He does get away with it sometimes against some other players. It's not going to work here. So probably going to have a longer game and wait until a later stage before taking those risky moves that we know Nihal likes to do, but do it a bit later. Do it when they're a bit lower on the clock. He did it early and he got punished. He gave Arjun everything he wanted. Let's slow it down a little bit.
Yeah, I definitely like his opening choices. Nihal, he plays kind of everything here. So opening choice, I got to play for a win. What am I speaking about? What am I going to pick?
Well, with Nihal, it always comes, James, to London.
Yeah,
is that going to happen? I think it's a comfort pick as well. So it's not just what opening I pick that gives me the best advantage, but which one makes me the most comfortable, that I know the plans, that I can play quickly? Because I think he wants a game that he's not going to spend a lot of time in the opening wondering, what am I going to do? What are the plans here? He wants comfort. And I think the London system, especially for Nihal, very, very good London player, is always top of the mind.
Aren't you a London player yourself, Omar?
Yeah, he's a bit biased because I don't think that should be the pick.
What do you think the pick is, Eric?
Probably just E4.
E4 for the score, absolutely.
I mean, Nihal sometimes plays...
We'll see.
We'll see.
Maybe they can hear us, but sometimes he plays knight F3 and he just plays a quiet opening and tries to outplay you, not theoretically, but just a bit like Artemiev like that. These guys they play everything.
I do see a lot of knight F3, B3 from him. He likes to play the same thing as you mentioned with Artemiev, doing the same thing. He's getting those positions pretty quiet, but also with some venom to it as well. So these guys are ready to go, lock and loaded. Now, they do have white noise in there. Have you guys played with white noise before?
Well, James, my last experience with that, I think, was chess boxing.
Okay.
I've definitely played under those conditions.
That does count.
That does count. It's not, probably not quite like this, but it's a different kind of pressure. Different kind of pressure.
All right, guys, you are calling the shots here. Games are about to start. We are excited and we're watching.
Thank you, James. We're about to get straight into the action. Eric, a lot of pressure. We've actually witnessed this already in the first match of the day. A win early means a win on demand required for Nihal Sarin. He must be feeling the pressure.
He must be feeling the pressure. These guys are very familiar with each other, so I think there's some different emotions involved. But again, like if I'm in Nihal's shoes, like his goal is to make it the event. He did through the qualifiers. He has pressure to do well, but at least he's comforted by the fact this is where he wanted to be. In this situation against the best players in the world. Like this is what he's worked his whole career towards. And it's just whether he can, reel that in to find his best chess, but I think he's happy to be here. Like, I mean, not just as like this is what he wanted. He knew coming in that there would be situations like this.
That's right. He had to expect this, came in through the last chance qualifier. So definitely, not the easiest path, right? He's really worked to be here and definitely earned his spot just like everyone else. We see a position here a little bit more to the position that you were talking about, Eric. It's not really a knight F3, B3 opening, but what it is kind of a position that started with an English, but it looks a little bit more like a Queen's Gambit with that Grunfeld idea for black, fianchettoing and going super solid.
Well, this is the imbalance that he's gone for. He beat me last month with the bishop pair in this kind of structure. We saw him take out Alexander Bortnik in the LCQ, just a slow position with a bishop pair. It allows you to build up. Is the position really good for white? No, but it's slightly preferable. It's very solid, and it allows for lots of maneuvering. So this is the kind of long game that Nihal, I think it's a smart decision that he's going for.
Yep, and I look at the move rook f to c1, and I think it's in anticipation of knight to a5 for black, knight into c4, and he wants to be able to maybe drop that bishop back to the e1 square, because he wants a situation where he has the favorable imbalance. That bishop pair there, something he wants to maintain for later on in the game. He doesn't want to just have it exchanged right away.
He's going to keep the bishop pair. He's going to slowly push those kingside pawns, g3, h4. Arjun probably putting the knight on c4. You don't want it to stay on a5. And in the structure, often that knight on c4 drops back to d6. But here we already see b5 with a bit of a threat. Said Arjun's not the type to just like really give you everything. He's going to give you some tough decisions, put you under pressure when he can, because they both like to attack.
He's doing it straight away. But b5, we talk about b4 being a threat. Eric, if he steps out of the way, queen d3 or queen d1, immediately I'm looking at knight c4, because now bishop e1 is not the same as before. We got a lot of pawns hanging, b5 and b2. Do you go a6 here to just strengthen everything together, or the more kind of imbalanced knight c4?
You have to go knight c4. If a6 and white goes b3, the knight on a5 is misplaced. Here, I'm expecting bishop b1, and we might see a trade of the b pawns. But at the same time, even though you exchange the b pawns and that might be solid, that could open up the position a little bit for Nihal. I really don't see any future, though, where Nihal gives up the dark squared bishop here.
Yep. No, it's critical because he's in that must-win situation. So if the knight exchanges for the bishop on d2, what's left in the position is the bishop on g7 and the bishop on f3, opposite color bishops. We know those have drawish tendencies, but we're seeing the style of Erigaisi. Eric, is he right to stick to his style because this is his chess, or is he just giving, too many opportunities for Nihal?
I think it's right. I think that's his level, his rating, his ranking. It's based on the style of chess he plays, and he thrives in active positions. And he demonstrated in the first game that he can go toe-to-toe in a sharp position.
Yep.
Even in the time scramble, he didn't blunder. He found attacking moves. He took away some of Nihal's venom. And here, based on his body language and the way he's playing, I'm absolutely for it. I mean, queen b6. If you're Nihal, you're worried. I go knight c3. The queen comes in. We have some more liquidations, but it might be forced. A4 doesn't really change that. Black can throw in a6, and that b pawn is going to be loose either way.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's a temporary
right.
sacrifice.
Mm-hmm. Yep. If the knight moves back, as you said, queen takes on b2 perhaps. So I think this plays against that a little bit. If the knight captures on a3, it'd be funny. We once again get that feature of the doubled and isolated a pawns, but white would be a pawn ahead. I don't really see any reason to do that, but what he is preventing is queen takes b2. Because now, after knight takes c4, although you can't just recapture that pawn, Eric, I think knight takes c4, maybe queen c2. I'm sure he'd be happy there.
Yeah, knight takes queen takes b2. I'm calculating because I think Nihal is going to take on c4.
Right, we're seeing it on the board. Maybe knight c4, rook c4. If you take with the rook, there is queen takes a1 as well as pawn takes c4. So not a move you would want to do.
Yeah, the risk here for Nihal is too many things get traded. He needs to keep enough material to pressure. What are you going to pressure right now? Well, on a good day, that queen on d3 will go to a6. The a7 pawn is the only weakness. I'd like to play bishop e1. I don't have time. I'd like to take on c4. I don't have time. Rook b1. He's going to trade.
And eventually, he's going to be able to kick this rook out with bishop back to d1. The question is this enough of an advantage? He's got the bishop pair, but black is a move away from playing. Bishop g7 to f8. If those bishops trade, I'm not seeing any advantage.
Absolutely not. So it's all about timing here. Will Nihal have enough time to play bishop c5 and at least maybe use that bishop to harass the a7 pawn? Because if bishop f8 occurs, if those dark squared bishops get traded, I really don't think he can press.
Yep.
He will try.
This is a pivotal
but it's too
moment.
Comfortable.
Exactly. This is really important right here. If the rook drops back to c4 or c6, it will get hit by that light squared bishop again. Bishop to e2 if rook c4. Bishop to a4 if rook c6. And bishop c5 and white invading on the b file, that's happening next.
So even though I've mentioned, black's pretty close to equalizing, I think I see the plan here. Nihal's never going to trade that dark squared bishop, so if it gets attacked or a trade is offered, that bishop on b4, it might tuck itself on a5, maybe on e1, but he's simply not going to trade it off, and maybe he's going to push his own a pawn, try to push it to a6, try to fix that a7 pawn. You have to try something. So maybe a4, maybe bishop a4, but the good thing for Nihal is he's covered the second rank.
Yep.
So there's no rook c2 coming. He's bought himself a little bit of time.
Okay, bishop to c5, right? Has to be the move that you consider here. And the main question is, after bishop c5, are there any tricks? Just want to make sure. I don't think so. Just involving maybe knight to e4.
I wonder if rook a6 is possible. Bishop b5. No, it's a little too risky. Oh, look at this move by Erigaisi. Knight e4.
Yep.
Offering that pawn.
Knight
but there
C3.
is a knight c3 idea hitting the bishop, rook, and pawn, and you can't defend all three of them at once.
Yeah, that's a really, really nice move there. Solving his problems with activity, but right back at you. Bishop d7.
Rook d8. You know the next move.
Rook d8, bishop e7 sets up a really, really nice idea of white playing rook down to b8 check.
But this is a key moment now, because if white wins some time, that rook will eventually go to b7. a7 is hanging. What does Arjun do here?
Yeah, this is I mean, you have to first of all keep the rook on the 8th rank, right? If you bring the rook up to c7, the same issue. Rook down to b8 check. So rook a8 to guard a7. I guess that comes to mind. Okay, I think we know the next move.
He wants to pull the bishop out and then maybe move the rook. Force the bishop to go to e7. It's no longer hitting a7. Then he's ready to move the rook. So bishop e7. We know that rook a8 is likely to be played there. and at least he's not losing any material. And that bishop on g7, as soon as it gets a chance, it's going back to f8.
And he only has just enough squares for that rook to survive, by the way. Time is dead even between these two. This is a very, very razor-sharp game right now, very close. If bishop e7, rook a8, every time you attack that rook, one square allows itself to free up, so the rook will not be trapped.
He's calculating rook b7 here, Amon. He's going to offer to lose his dark squared bishop like a trade and maybe have that pass c-pawn, which is very close to queening. So I think the two options here, there's bishop b7, but rook b7 looks like a way to press.
Yeah, because I don't think you can even exchange knight takes c5 after rook b7. Just c6, c7, yeah, he's going to do it, which means first thing I would think of here, Eric, is moving that a pawn. It's attacked twice.
Are you playing a6 or a5? Every pawn move has an advantage and disadvantage.
And notice how he's been playing with such initiative, Nihal. He hasn't given Arjun time to play bishop f8. We were talking about how bishop f8, that would be like almost equalizing, and certainly nothing to worry about after that. But there's just been no time for that. Every single move from Nihal has come with a threat.
For a must-win game, he's doing everything he can to squeeze this position, and I like what he's doing here. This is not comfortable for black. You're just slightly worse, and your position's harder to play. I mean, you're thinking about draw, secures it. We're not close to that. He's got to just lock in here and understand he's in for a long, long grind because Nihal's pieces are starting to take over.
I'm looking at bishop b6 and just playing a4 and a5. That looks like a good enough plan to be satisfied with. The a6 pawn will be a target. It is currently on a light square. The only person with a light squared bishop is Nihal. This is a provocative move. He understands you can't take that bishop. He's trying to chase the knight away.
I love this move.
Wow.
We know we can't take, and where do you place the knight? Because some squares, you can put it on f6. But when that bishop on d7 moves, what future does that knight on f6 have? What square can it go to? You can go knight c3, but then you have to make sure your knight doesn't get trapped on the wrong side of the board. This is an excellent move by Nihal, questioning what future does that knight have? Knight f6, I will pull my bishop back to a4 or to c6. If knight c3, I'll use your move, potentially pawn to a4, push it down the board to a5, and then I get closer and closer to a situation where if I can win the a6 pawn, I'm very close to queening.
Yeah, after a4, a5, we've been mentioning how the pawn on a6 is on a light square. It means that white's light squared bishop, at some point in an endgame, if the rooks trade, can just walk up and take that pawn. There's nothing that can be done to defend it.
Probably the best move because the knight has some security on c4, still close enough to contest the queen side. But make no mistake, Nihal's pressing here. He's very comfortable. And a couple missteps margin, he can find himself in a lost endgame real fast.
Yeah, the knight is just trying to find a good square. But notice how all the squares that are available, they don't really bother the coordination of the pieces. This has been a really impressive game from Nihal, the way that he took a seemingly symmetrical pawn structure. The only advantage he had was that bishop pair. And look, he still has it some 10, 15 moves later.
I think what Arjun's looking for, Mon, is a chance for counterplay. If you ever go rook a7, I go rook b8. I'm willing to lose the a6 pawn to bring my rook to b2. So it's a waiting game for Arjun. And Nihal's going to do, that's why he hasn't played rook a7 yet. He does not want to give this rook b8 move. You see the knight on c4. That rook getting to b2 would really harass white's king.
Yeah, important rook a7, rook b8. Way too much counterplay. But if you don't play rook a7, you're never winning the pawn. So that's why he's playing king e2. He's trying to play king d3, maybe include e4 as well, but certainly bring that king to a position where rook b8 is not as much of a problem.
We just can't go king d3 yet because of bishop takes c5, followed by rook takes d7, and the tactics come, and both these guys are great at finding that. So Nihal, rook c7. He's preparing to go rook c8 if rook b8.
He must be, and that endgame is when he's willing to play. Notice how in the endgame, white's king, much better placed than black's, close to the action, and that passed pawn, that could be devastating.
Yeah, with bishops, that's why it's so important when you have the bishop pair to make sure there's pawns on both sides of the board. If there's no a pawn for either side, this would be no problem. But the inclusion of just that one pawn on a6
We're gonna see it.
gives white a push, a very serious push here, Amon.
If you trade the bishops, that might have already been a winning position for white. He couldn't. He plays a5. It looks like something is going to fall here. He can't take on c5 because the c pawn just rolls down the board. White's threatening bishop takes c4, Eric. If I can trade everything, it's completely winning for white.
And if you can trade everything, and black's knight moves, there's a future that king on e2 finds itself a path to a4, picks up that pawn, and if that pawn falls, the a pawn is just going to march down the board.
So, I mean, if you can't allow bishop takes c4, you have to play a move like this, but notice how that a pawn is just going to be targeted by white.
It's time for a4, I think. What do you think?
Fix that pawn, bishop b6 next after a4.
The problem with the king position is some exchanges, some endgames are winning for white. Even material, the king is closer. So, for example, after a4, if you move your knight to c4, everything can be traded off, and that's a winning king and pawn endgame for Nihal. So this is one of the critical moves of the game for Arjun because he sees how he could be losing soon. Urgency is required.
So if a4, knight f5, one of the issues with bishop b6 is the black bishop gets out to b4, which I think is why Nihal correctly spends time, chases the pawn to a light square. And why is that worse? Because first of all, the pawn can't go all the way up the board. That's on white's side. Easy for the white king to just go over and capture. And if it stays where it is right now, that's a light square. And the only person that can attack the light squares reliably here is Nihal.
Yeah, after maybe white goes a3 and eventually they'll play bishop b5 and take it. No rush to do that because black's not threatening anything. Nihal is just provoking weaknesses, allowing Arjun to push that pawn closer to his position. And we're seeing a really, really good effort by Nihal to squeeze this position. And now he knows. He knows that he's got great winning chances. It's a 2-result game. His king is closer. Big pressure here.
And one thing he has to be careful of is bishop takes the knight. Even if you win one pawn, sometimes even two, Eric, you don't want bishops that are on opposite colors. Those give really, really good drawing chances.
Yeah, no opposite bishops here. I just want to move my king to b4. What is Arjun going to do to stop that? Look for counterplay. Maybe you can't stop it. You just have to try to harass the king side. But it's hard when your pieces are both unable to move until he decides to his bishop on f8 not moving right now. After king e6, the knight is pinned, right?
Yep.
So after king b4, is there a trick? Pawn to a3. It's a temporary trick, maybe, but I'm not sure it even. Yeah, no, it even works. No.
Yeah, that pawn is going to be taken at some point. It's just a matter of time. Nihal has been, waiting for this moment, and look at this. He's taken on a4. He's finally up that pawn. He's earned that extra pawn. 2 minutes apiece. No one has a significant time edge. This is all about the board, and Nihal squeezing water from stone.
Squeezing water from stone, and I said, when you win the a-pawn, you should have a winning position. This is absolutely, with right technique, a winning position for Nihal. Can he make sure no opposite bishop endgames, find a way that he can push all of black's pieces back?
Okay, bishop to a7. There's maybe, I was thinking about knight b5, but no, not quite knight b5. Bishop a7? Is that the move that you want to try here?
I could go king
You have to keep
b4,
guarding e3.
Bishop a7. Nihal's defended everything right now. Bishop a7. I mean, maybe there's king b4.
It must be king b4 if this is the incorrect move, but you know what? It looked like the move that made the most sense. Perhaps even allowing king c6 was not right by Nihal. Might have underestimated that move.
I still don't see how black punishes it, and Nihal's in a position to start pushing that a-pawn. It's up to Arjun to figure out how to defend.
Now, taking this knight is very tempting because you know what I don't want? Knight c5 and having to play bishop takes c5. I think you have to take that knight, but you know what? What he's saying is that after bishop c5, he's going to go king back to c6. And here we go. Same color bishops, Eric. They're not opposite colors. He's got great winning chances.
Outside pass pawn. The standard plan here, push that pawn, distract the king, and then you will pick up black's kingside pawns.
Now, he has to move the bishop. There's only one square, f8, right? Moving back to a7 will just repeat with king b7. So this move is 100% forced.
But he does spot it immediately, which is very impressive. Taking away Arjun's threat of bishop e1 check. And again, you want to time it properly. You want to push that a-pawn, distract black's pieces, and put yourself in a position to then pick off the king side.
This is a position with great winning chances for Nihal. He's got the extra pawn. It's on the outside of the board. He's also up on time. This is looking like a comeback in the making.
And now with that time advantage, he's got multiple win conditions. He doesn't need to push that anytime soon. He can take his time. e4, I think black might go d4 here. You don't want to push on dark squares, but what else do you do?
It makes sense, though. This is usually what you want. And by the way, look at every single white pawn. the opposite color of black's bishop, which means this is a position that Nihal can play forever. Not only is he winning on the board, Eric, but this is a position, even if it was equal, I think he would win.
Yeah, if you trade the bishops off, white will eventually bring the king back to c4, play f4, and you'll have 2 passed pawns. Black can't deal with that. Arjun has to keep the dark squared bishop on the board. But again, those pawns on dark squares, Nihal has to figure out a setup where he can push that a pawn or try to win e5. But this is even better.
Yeah.
He's just maintaining the time advantage.
Bishop
it's winning
D2.
anyways. Bishop d2 and probably f4.
Yep, bishop d2. First thing to calculate is, can it be taken? Black plays king a5. You have to make sure you're on top of that calculation. You do not want to mess this up now. He realizes he can. I would have even said, wait, what about the move f4? But he realizes he doesn't need to rush. h4 is another move. Pawns all on dark squares here.
Nihal's taking time here. The other plan is to just shuffle. He can probably win this on the clock.
Yep.
He's looking for a breakthrough. Is f4 playable? It's playable. Is it winning for sure? I couldn't tell you. And he's spending too much time, in my opinion, figuring that out.
He is. And you know what? He just needs to go back to basics. He's a very quick player. He can play this position for a win on the clock. Black has to move the king now.
Ah.
But if you move the king up, there is d3.
And then bishop e1 supporting it. Nihal's taking too much time here.
Way
He didn't
too
need
much
to do
time.
this, Simon. He was up on time.
He has to
now
move.
he's trying to win the game on the chessboard. That's not all you have to do.
Yep.
14 to 21. Look at Arjun's progress here.
And now you can't even play bishop d2 maybe because, you know, you're not sure if that calculation
He's running
works.
out of moves.
He's finally pre-moving. This is dangerous, though.
But he's not pre-moving everything.
I love that idea, but it's too little too late in terms of
8
on the
seconds
board.
to 13. We're going to see a time scramble here. Nihal has to win this game. He has to keep enough material on the board. 6 to 10.
I don't think he's going to be able to do it. The bishop's trapped.
Why did he slow down so much?
It's trapped.
He can move back and forth a bit. 3 seconds to 8.
No, white needs to do something incredible. Oh, he misses it.
This queen comes in.
Oh my goodness, and Arjun gets a queen and wins. Arjun Erigaisi from Gen.G wins 2-0.
That is incredible, Mon. That was a lost position and lost on the clock, and we've seen this before. He never went into bullet mode, and he's one of the best players in the world.
The best.
And,
oh, goodness.
And he just forgot.
He
tried to play too accurate. He could have pre-moved.
Sometimes in chess, your position is so good that you're sitting there and all you want to do is play the best move, but he needed to let that go and just play the clock game.
Yeah, what a reversal. I really was 100% sure that Nihal, out of all people, when he's up 20 seconds in a winning position. Wow.
Yeah, that's truly something because you know what? In that spot, I